What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we go and talk about Sanji. Now, if you've been keeping up with some of the latest in the anime community, you've seen some of the discourse going on about Sanji and specifically how Toei has been treating Sanji. Especially in these last couple of episodes, there have been different instances where it looks like they're either cutting Sanji out of the animation, or the animation that they do give him is lackluster, it's weak, or it makes him look worse as a character. In some of the most recent episodes, you'll see that, for example, Sanji has been removed from an entire background panel, which had basically every straw hat in there. Everyone involved in the egghead portion was all standing in this one shot, but Sanji was not there. And in the manga, Sanji is there, albeit he is in the back, very small. Like it's honestly, it's not a big thing, but he is cut out of it. And I believe that follows up to a scene that's added with Sanji, very specifically having heart eyes for Bonnie. Now in the manga, he does have heart eyes and he is communicating with Bonnie, but it's not so direct. And you still see him in the background with the heart eyes. So it's kind of just Sanji being Sanji in general, not so direct, not so pointed at Bonnie. So it kind of makes it look a little bit weirder. There are some older examples that have definitely come up time and time again. For example, Sanji against S-Shark, where Sanji ends up getting thrown by S-Shark, flies through, and then they animated that really, really well, which is kind of hilarious. But it's something that doesn't happen in the manga, but in the anime, it shows him basically, I don't want to say struggling, it shows him getting hits from S-Shark, where in the manga, it just seems like he's pretty much unfazed by anything S-Shark is doing. Now, I've seen many edits of the Sanji being thrown by S-Shark thing, and I personally find them funny, especially the shooting stars one. I find that hilarious. I couldn't find it. I don't know where I saw it. I saw it one time, never saw it again. Thought it was hilarious. But I watched the actual scene in the anime, and it's very abrupt. Like S-Shark grabs him, chucks him, he goes flying, then just slams to a wall and slams to the ground. And it's such a weird addition, but I think what's happening there is that they're trying to showcase a bit more of S-Shark. There's also Runji. I don't know if you know what Runji is, but you'll see here. Also kind of rough animation. And these are just some of the latest things that people have been pointing out. There was also controversy about how Sanji saved Edison, how that looked a lot more like a speed feat in the manga than it does in the anime. And you can take steps back farther, you can see certain things like facial expressions, you can see just different scenes that Sanji is in that just don't pop like people see them in the manga. And noticeably, you're gonna have the Sanji fans upset about that because that's their character. They love that character, they want to see him shine. Now, I will say, on the other side of this, the Sanji stans, the ones that go a little too hardcore, have been going extra with this. Like sending death threats, they've been harassing directors and animators. They have the whole kill Toei thing. They're putting up some fake, a fake notice from Toei talking about how some of the animators want Oda to kill Sanji off and basically get him out of the anime because they don't want to deal with him. It's definitely not true. And I think some discourse happened with Megumi Ishitani some time ago. Just really terrible stuff. And I understand that you want to see your character represented in the best light that they can. You always want that. If it's your favorite, you want to see them shine. And when you don't get to see them shine, it hurts a little bit. It's rough. However, going against animators and directors and threatening them and doing that kind of stuff is crazy. Do not condone that. I think that's stepping the line greatly for a fictional drawing. He is pixels. Do not challenge people like that. Do not threaten or attack people like that over some pixels. You will get over it, I promise. And I think another thing that stems from this is that in contrast to how Sanji looks, Zoro, who, if you're living under a rock and you don't know the constant back and forth between Sanji stans and Zoro stans, Zoro looks really well in the anime. Phenomenally well. They tend to take a lot of care with Zoro scenes. to the degree that they take a lot of care with Luffy scenes to make sure that they pop, they shine, they look really good. And to a lot of people, that's like, okay, you'll give Zoro this love, you won't give Sanji that love. And again, it hurts. If Sanji's your favorite and you're not getting that love, and you see Zoro getting that love, you see other characters getting that love, you're like, man, why can't we get anything? So I get that. I will say it's down to, Toei's a company. And as a company, they're going to do what gets them the viewership. They're going to do what gets them the money. And the money is in Luffy and Zoro. Sanji has his fans. Sanji has tons of fans. I think he constantly comes in third in popularity polls. He is not the money maker for One Piece. When you think of One Piece in general, and you think of like the faces, you're going to see Luffy and you're going to see Zoro. If you think even a little bit farther past that, especially when it comes to the anime, you're going to start diving into Nami and Robin before you hit Sanji. Because you have Luffy and Zoro, who are like the faces. They have that appeal of just aura coolness, everything you want in anime protagonists. That's what they are. And then you have, some of the more laid back elements. Of course, you have the fan service elements. You have different elements that bring Nami and Robin to the forefront. Once you get past those, you still have to get past Chopper, who is literally the merch mascot. So you have like these 5 kind of categories of people you got to get past before you get to the rest of the crew. Like Sanji, Usopp, Frankie, Brook, just not moneymakers. And you can throw Jinbei in there too. None of them are moneymakers. And not to say that they're not important, not to say that they don't, drive any kind of revenue. If I want to make money, I'm going to use one of those 5 characters I mentioned earlier, not the latter 5. Like, imagine the amount of Usopp merch compared to the amount of Chopper merch. The amount of Usopp figures compared to the amount of Robin and Nami figures. Like, there are different levels to this, and Sanji doesn't really hit the heights of like popularity like that, where he is driving Toei's revenue. People want to see a cool Zoro scene. And Zoro fits the bill for being a cool character. That's what Zoro is. He is, in essence, the cool character of the crew. So it's obvious that Toei is going to put their money in the cool character, in the driving character. Should they focus more on other crewmates? Should they try to be more one-to-one with the adaptations? Absolutely. I think if you take a character and you remove elements from them, that makes a bad adaptation. When you look at other shows and you see like people talking about how the anime doesn't follow the light novel, the anime doesn't follow the manga, that's what they're talking about. They're talking about things that are being removed for the sake of, wow factor, for the sake of getting people to watch, but you take out key elements so that people that know what's going on there, they lose that. But when it comes to anime, you're not thinking about the people who've already, seen it, people who've already read it. You want the new people. You want the people coming in. You want to attract them. And so that's where a lot of that focus comes up. And I think you can even look on, if you look on that Crunchyroll's page on YouTube, you will probably see primarily Luffy scenes and Zoro scenes being added to that. You're not going to see a lot of Sanji. I don't think you're going to see any Usopp. I don't think you're going to see any Frankie or Brook. Like, you're just not going to see those characters because they aren't as popular for the anime. And another point I want to add to that is that this isn't a new thing, and this isn't a only Sanji thing. Toei has constantly been changing the way the anime works as based off the manga for some time now. You can think back to Whitebeard at Marineford. In the manga, he wasn't getting pieced up by Blackbeard. Blackbeard was throwing lefts, rights, hooks, uppercuts, shoryukens, and Whitebeard was just taking it. And then eventually he catches his Vicento and then, cleaves Blackbeard in the arm. That doesn't happen in the manga. But in the anime, it happens to pad time and to kind of give Blackbeard, it gives Blackbeard that second of advantage to where it looks like Whitebeard's on the ropes. And that's what the anime does. They pad time, they add things to make the scene seem more suspenseful. They want to pad for drama. When in reality, it's a very quick fight. It's a very quick skirmish even, where Whitebeard just has the advantage. He's very quick to react. Another instance you can look at is how Luffy and Kaido, their first interaction goes, where when Luffy is in Gear 4 and Kaido finally steps up and does Raime Hake, That's a speed blitz. That is an instant, no clash, no time to think. Kaido hits Luffy and Luffy's out. Whereas in the anime, they pad it forward time again. They add suspense. They have Luffy give a King Kong gun, and they have Kaido revving up with Raimei Hake, and they clash. Luffy actually gets a hit in on Kaido. Kaido gets a hit in on Luffy. And eventually Kaido wins the clash, because that's what he does. But it takes out the speed element entirely. And that may seem a bit smaller in that instance, but it's such an important factor that when it comes to the point where Luffy and Kaido are fighting again on the rooftop, and that same scene occurs where Kaido is doing Raimei Hake, Luffy has to use Future Sight to try and dodge. And even doing so, he still doesn't completely dodge the attack. That's how fast that was. Luffy saw into the future, saw the attack, tried to dodge it, still didn't completely dodge it. That's how fast Kaido was moving. And Kaido even goes as far as to applaud Luffy for being able to, try and dodge it this time. So that very important sense of speed is taken from the anime where it belongs in the manga. And there are many other examples. You can go through the catalog of Toei and with One Piece alone and just see how many things they have changed from manga to anime. And like I said, they're not a one-to-one adaptation. That's why it's called an adaptation. You're taking the source material and you're making a new thing based off of an old thing. The anime is not intended to be the manga in animation form. It's intended to be an anime based off the manga. So yes, they're going to change things. They're going to adapt things a little bit differently because making it a one-to-one is very hard, and oftentimes it doesn't translate to anime well. They're going to pad things. They're going to add things to fights to make them more interesting. Look at the Big Mom and Kaido clash. I think that's just one panel in the manga of them clashing swords. In the anime, they have an entire adaptation where they have these two scrapping in the beginning of the episode. Something that doesn't exist in the manga, but something that they add to the anime to make that interaction more interesting. So while sometimes they add things or remove things that deter from the original source, they add things that benefit as well. Now, if they start doing things like, one of the things I saw mentioned was that they're going to take Sanji kicking Kizaru's light and they're going to ruin that somehow. If they actively do try and ruin that, like if we watch that episode and we can tell that, they made it look less cool than it does in the manga, then I think there's an argument to be had. Otherwise, I think it's just a matter of your favorite character kind of getting the job treatment. I mean, Sanji's a jobber, to be honest. Or at least that's where he's ending up. And if you're not really familiar with the jobber, that's when you have a strong, durable character that can normally fight like with the top tiers, but you use them to get jobbed by other characters. And the goal is to make the other character look better. For example, like I was saying with S-Shark, the reason that they pad that scene and the reason that they have S-Shark throw Sanji and like the different changes they make there, that is to make S-Shark look more threatening. That is to add suspense to that interaction so that it's not just Sanji overpowering someone. And now there's a scale to who you job. You do not job the main character. You do not job the most popular of the characters. You job the character that's really close to the most popular, most powerful characters. And that's right where Sanji fits in. You can't really job with anybody else. Like if you look at the rest of the crew, you really don't expect a lot of them to be able to handle some of these top tier threats. At most, you could say that Jinbei could be jobbed, but Jinbei doesn't have enough time with the crew to really fit that role. Sanji is honestly the only one that fits that role, and it sucks, and it's not fair to Sanji fans, but that's kind of the role he's fitting into right now. I think at some point we'll probably see more of that land on Jinbei as we see, Luffy, Zoro, and Sanji kind of rise in power level, and I think Jinbei is going to stay relatively stagnant. So we'll probably see that pass over to Jinbei, but for now, it's kind of in Sanji's wheelhouse. And as a final note, I'll have to say that in general, antagonizing the people that are making the anime is not the greatest plan when you want them to change something. Like, obviously you can voice your opinion on how you dislike something. Something's not great, something's not done properly, something's unfair. You should always voice those opinions, and if the company actually cares about the viewership, they will listen. But if you're threatening them, if you're challenging them, if you're insulting them, that's not going to get you anywhere. Honestly, if I was an animator and I was getting insulted online, man, I'd be tearing Sanji up. Sanji getting low diffed by everybody. Sanji versus Kaku, Kaku wins. Sanji versus Sentomaru wins. Sanji versus Sea Beast wins. Like, that's how I would react if a bunch of people online were just freaking out over some scenes here. And again, I want to say that it's not to disparage anybody who's like, I really like this character and I'm upset that they're not giving him his due diligence. They're not giving him the scenes that he deserves. I understand that. My thing is more towards the people who are being so like just rude and disrespectful to the people that are making the anime, that extends past like complaining, and just it gets to a really weird, threatening level that they really shouldn't get to over something like animation. But that's my 2 cents. Let me know if you agree, disagree down below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.